A show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on GTV. This show is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Cyril B. Romney Tertola Pier Park, NV Salon Spa, Nail and Barbershops, the Wellness Center Medical and Behavioral Health Clinics, Tissot Cross Deliciously Smooth Cider, HOV Medical, and Digicel. Sign up for Digicel Plus Home Light Bundles, faster internet, movies, and sports. On this edition of The Big Story, it's overbearing. The dominant remark by residents of Virgin Gorda, Virgin Islands. Their issues surround that of water supply on the island. Now they are petitioning the 13 elected officials of the House of Assembly. In a release from the Ministry of Communications and Works dated Thursday, September 21, 2023, reads in part, quote, "The water scarcity that the Valley Virgin Gorda has been experiencing is attributed to three main culprits: the inadequate production of water, the inadequacy of the distribution system, and sargassum seaweed infiltration. The current operational capacity at the water production plant in Handsome Bay is insufficient to meet the community's demands. This deficiency has resulted in water being rationed to the customers of the valley area of Virgin Gorda from time to time. Also compounding the problem is the distribution system, with inadequate pipes to transmit the potable water throughout the community. The Ministry of Communications and Works will be issuing an expression of interest to obtain the service of a reputable and qualified company to replace and upgrade the water distribution network through a public-private partnership engagement. For the compounding the supply of water is the sargassum seaweed buildup in the area, which has created further challenges in supplying residents with constant water supply. Efforts are being made to address these issues," end quote. Now, in an invited comment, Mrs. Sharon Flax Brutus of Virgin Gorda Water Woes groups, whilst stating they appreciate the press release, says that it does not fully address nor provide definitive ways forward for the water woes of Virgin Gorda. Hence, she said, their petition still stands for open dialogue with all members of the House of Assembly. Now, what other residents on the islands have to say on this issue, including former legislator Shireen Flax Charles?
In 1995, the water plant was established in Virgin Gorda, the first one in the Valley Virgin Gorda, and that helped the problem. But over the years, what has happened is that population has grown. It hasn't grown a lot. Population is still small, around 3,000 here there. But what has happened is that also you have the tourism season, which requires a lot more water. We also have a lot of drought on Virgin Gorda, so person system are not as full as they used to be. And in addition to that, you also have the sargassum. These are the three factors that have been contributing to keeping the water level for the island less than what is necessary to keep the whole island, we call it reasonably satisfied 24-hour service. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so what has been happening in the last couple of years, we've been having nighttime cut, water cut, between 5 and 7 and 3 and 5 and all that kind of thing. It has been going on for a long time to be true. Fact, it was going on for a long time, but it's gotten worse now. We're having cuts in the daytime between 12 and 4 o'clock, and then in the daytime, and then the nighttime you're having cut again at night, 9 o'clock until 5 in the morning. This is not acceptable. Yeah, so that's where, in terms of the background to the whole thing, we are in a period where there's a water shortage. I said because of the factors mentioned above.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess you would have been following the releases that the government would have been sending out. Are you guys like comfortable with what you're being told?
The matter being comfort. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Comfort is the enemy of progress. If you put it in that perspective, one should always be cautious about how comfortable you get in any situation. I think the government is trying to do their best, but is the best what we need in Virgin Water? We need something a little more than the best at this point in time. We need to push that curtain in the sense that, yes, there are things that are there, but at the end of the day, somebody has to be held accountable.
Chris, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. Could you, for the record, give us an explanation as to the situation as it relates to potable water supply on the island and its effects on you and other residents?
Well, I live on Windy Hill, which isn't that high. We haven't had water up where I live for 4 weeks, gone now, more than 4 weeks. And we haven't had rain, and this morning I found my water pump running, and I found that my cistern is empty. And I have a solenoid valve and a float in the cistern, so it is supposed to stay half full, so I have room for rainwater. But it's disgusting, I live here with my mom, and, she's 102 this year, and we need water. It's ridiculous. I'm being very vocal online. I know I go and read the meters at the water plant, so I know that the water plant is making 12, 13 million gallons of water every month. I put the results online on the WhatsApp, and the government won't say how much of it they're selling and how much of it gets stolen or whatever, or isn't sold, let's say. It goes to illegal connections. So we don't know whether we need a bigger water plant. We certainly need a more honest water and sewage department that checks how much they're selling, or will at least say we're selling 6 million gallons of the 12 million. We're losing 6 million gallons or whatever. Until you actually know what is happening with the water, you don't know whether you need a bigger plant. You don't know whether you need a new water distribution system. You don't know anything. It's like if you had a bar and you buy 5 cases of beer, you need to know you've sold 5. You can't just sell 2 and expect to stay in business. But the Water and Sewage Department does. They lose money every year, $22 billion a year.
Okay. What's the general feel among the general population of Virgin Gorda at this time?
Everybody's disgusted with it. Every day we're getting announcements. Water will be turned off from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock to fill the reservoir, to raise the level of water in the reservoir. Now, this is September. We've no tourists on the island. What are we going to do in December when Little Dick's Bay Hotel is full, when all our villas at Maho Bay are full, and you've all these tourists? This morning my mom and I can wash out of a bucket that I collect the drippings from my air conditioner in a bucket to water the plants. I used it to bathe this morning. You can't expect tourists to do that. I mean, tourism is the lifeblood of Virgin Gorda. And you don't have water for the tourists?
Okay.
Tourists won't come to the island if they can't bathe. I mean, we live here. We can get away with just flushing the toilet once a day or once every 2 days. But the tourist isn't going to do that. They're used to flushing every time they go. You need water.
Okay.
It's completely disgusting.
Okay.
I think there's a petition going the rounds in Virgin Gorda at the moment. Because the United Nations say you're supposed to have water.
Okay.
And we're not getting it.
Hi, Clarinet. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with the JTV on record. Could you explain to us your concerns about the current situation that is plaguing uh, Virgin Gorda at the moment as it relates to water supply?
Okay, well, for me, it's the constant outages. It's basically almost every night. That puts a strain on our cistern reserves that we have. Because if you're going to use water at night, you definitely have to depend on your cistern. There are quite a few people on the island who don't really have access to cistern. They depend on the potable water supply. So it becomes a tough situation when you look at it, when you analyze the whole situation. As I say, for me personally, the outages is a problem. In terms of production, I know they have spoken of having adequate production, but then sometimes you get information that the reservoir is low and they have to produce enough water to bring the reservoir up to desired levels before they start supplying again. I mean, there are some situations where, okay, you have reached the desired levels of water, but then again, the distribution takes what you have produced and stored, and the process returns to what it was before. So you keep going around in circles. So you get water, then you don't get water, you get water, then you don't get water. So it's a little difficult, and it's challenging for the tourism industry, because I'm sure you've heard different opinions about that, where the villas and stuff are in short supply and, they have to depend on water being trucked in. I'm sure there are other individuals in the community who can provide more details as to that aspect of it. But for me personally, it's the outages, and whatever can be done to improve that, I would love to see it. I would love to experience it because, we really need it.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Cornell. Yes, Lyra, you go ahead, tell me your situation.
Yeah, I've been living at Copper Mine for almost 20 years now, and even before I started living there was a water problem. And there still is a water problem. We hardly get water in the Copper Mine and the Windy Hill area. And, if the owners that lives there, the house owners that lives there don't have cisterns or tanks, I don't know what we have to buy water. I mean, I bought water before in the dry seasons. I bought water before to put my cistern, but we don't have regular running water, government water.
And Mrs. Stevens, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us on this matter. Tell me your part. What it is that's bothering you as it relates to potable water supply on Virgin Gorda.
Good afternoon, Mr. Victor. How are you? What's bothering most of us here over in Virgin Gorda is that there's no accountability with either Aqua Design or the water distribution system. We have been at this for, I would say, 10 years. The seaweed is just adding to the issues that we have been having. The seaweed means that we turn off water now for 12 hours a day, but before we were turning it off for 8 hours a day. So if the plant is running at full capacity, we should be able to get potable water constantly with no interruptions. But we've been having daily interruptions, I would say, for 10 years. It's just reached to the point where we just can't take it anymore. Climate change, it's so hot. We can't do anything without water. I mean, there's a place over in Maho Bay. They didn't get water for 12 days. That's unfathomable in my mind.
Okay.
What we're trying to get the legislators to do is actually answer us. We ask the questions, what's going on with the water? Why do we have so many interruptions? And all we get is the normal political answers. We're going to look into it. They're trying to make some changes. We're questioning this director or the supervisor, but you never get a definite answer on, hey, we're having a meeting with Aqua Design and the government. We let you guys in to tell us what we've discussed. There's never that. We know who the supervisors are. We know who the acting director is. I call him sometimes myself. He himself has no answers because he's just an acting director. So there's nothing that he can tell us either. The supervisor, he still can't tell us anything. He's just a supervisor. And what he's saying to us is that the only thing he can do is to complain to his boss, who was Miss Pauline before Mr. Davis. But nothing actually gets done. I can tell you that there's a meter at the reservoir that hasn't worked for 7 or 8 years. Since Irma, we even don't have a roof on that reservoir. Now, that's a huge health hazard. Anyone could go up there, paint the water, and we all at peril here in the valley. The least we should have had was a cover on the reservoir.
So why was it that the people of Virgin Gorda would have sat for 8 years, seeing such a situation and not having it addressed?
Well, we're easygoing people. We've asked and we've begged. We've prodded. We've tried everything. So now it's reached to a critical situation where we just don't have water. We used to have a little before. Now we have none at all. But there's no one who is willing to say, hey, I'm going to look into this. I expected my representative to say, hey, I am going to really look into this. I saw him on another talk show, and what he said was he spoke to the guys that morning. This is a 10-year issue. Our representative lives in Handsome Bay. He lives there where the plant is. So he should know everything that's happening with us. I don't expect him to fix it. I expect him to find the person who can fix it. And I expect to hear from him either in our community chat, on the radio, on the television, some media outlet that, hey, this is how far we are with remedying our water situation. I haven't heard that from my representative. I haven't heard it from the supervisor over here. I haven't heard it from the director. I haven't heard it from the minister. And I haven't heard it from the premier. So there's no one who's actually telling us when this is going to be rectified or how it is going to be rectified or actually what the real problem is.
Okay. Have you seen the press release that they would have put out today?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because they did allude to some some measures that they intend to take to have the issue resolved.
No, I haven't seen that. But as politicians do, they only talk in future tense. We want to hear that it's being resolved now. Not that we're going to look into it for 2 weeks from now, 2 years from now. We want to know what the actual problem is. They should be able to tell us what the problem is. But as the representative said, he can't tell whether it's the distribution system or if it's Aqua Design. He don't know where the fault is. But if this is a 10-year problem we've been having, by now we should have known where the fault lies.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Mr. Stevens.
Oh, thank you for reaching out to me, Ms. Richards. You have a good day, okay?
You too. Bye-bye. Former legislator Shireen Flax Charles. We know of the situation that is prolonging itself at Virgin Gorda as it relates to water supply. What's your take on the situation right now?
Well, Kathy, thank you for reaching out. This situation has been very vexing, and throughout the territory, I must say mainly on Virgin Gorda and Tortola. And we have heard a lot about the water woes on Tortola. And within the last year or so, we started to see, and more recently within the last 5 to 6 months, an increase in water shortages on Virgin Gorda. It is very vexing because the questions are being asked and no answers are forthcoming. We've seen a second press release, but Kathy, I'll be very honest with you. I think that these releases are just to pacify the people, and knowing how people behave from where I have been, unless we see some sort of action, I am going to take it that the press releases are being done to pacify the people. We continue to see the workers at the Water and Sewage Department being used as scapegoats. It is very troubling that in the middle of September, the slowest season of the year, where you have less people on the island, visitors and residents, where the major hotel properties are closed, and we have the biggest, the longest water outages. And we keep hearing the same thing over and over. Then we've heard that the population has grown, and so we need more water. Is it the water plant? Is it a distribution problem? Is water leaking somewhere? Is water being stolen? And to me, a complete assessment needs to be done of all of the pipes, of all of the facilities. Now, where close to where I live, there's a pump that literally, as far as I am concerned, sits in the middle of the road, on the Copper Mine Road. And that pump has been problematic for more than 10 years, probably more than 20. And so in the area where we are, lots of people do not get water at all. Luckily for a lot of us, we do have cisterns, and that is another problem, Kathy, that needs to be looked at. Because based on my recollection and in asking town planning, it is mandatory by law that you must have a cistern or a holding tank when you build an apartment or residential or commercial building. And that is not what is happening. So if there's an issue with the water, there are buildings that do not have any sort of water catchment to carry them over until the problem is resolved. But on average, we're without water most days 11 hours out of the day, and that is not acceptable. And this was happening during the tourism season, and now it's happening in the slow season when you're barely seeing no tourists, no cruise ship passengers. So something seems to be wrong. I don't know what is being hidden from us, but something is not right with the whole water issue. And that's just the tip of the iceberg with the many issues that we are faced with. But I want to go back to that issue of the employees at the Water and Sewage Department here in Virgin Gorda. They've been without a home from before Hurricane Irma. They normally sit under some sort of a shed. But I have witnessed them visiting hardware stores when I go to the hardware, and they're taking funds out of their pocket to purchase fittings and pieces of pipe to fix the problem. So we have it's a double-edged sword. Do they do it because they love their job? They don't want people to be without water? Or they just say, you know what, I don't care. Somebody needs to be held responsible, and we continue to just hear about Water and Sewage Department, but we're not hearing about the ministry. What is the ministry doing to rectify these problems other than spitting out a couple of press releases? And in my estimation, that'll be 9 days talk. That'll be 9 days talk, and then we will move on to the next hot topic. Because I've been in the room and I've heard that before.
Okay. Thank you so much for your comment. Before we go, I noticed a petition now is going around.
Yes.
Can you give
Well,
me...
yes. a petition is going around. I think the last I checked, we had 100 and something signatures. We started out asking for 100. We now have 165. I believe it was the last time I checked. And we are forced now. Some of the residents have gotten together, and we are forced to take some form of action. Because if we do not act, if we say nothing, nothing is going to happen. And Virgin Guardians on a whole, to me, have been very passive. They do not like persons who speak up. And they do not like persons who speak up against the government. But the government needs, the persons in authority need to do what they need to do. And I might take some flack for it, Cathy, because I was there. And even in there, you are kept back. You are kept from action and stuff. And I know that it is difficult, but we've been going through this for the longest while. You go to Standing Finance Committee, the director at the time would have to beg and plead for pipes, for meters, for whatever is needed, and it is not forthcoming. And so, as residents of Virgin Gordon, it was one thing that I pledged after the election, that I would not sit idly by and still not try to help, because it's not about politics, it's not about elections, it's not about a political party, it is about the people of the entire British Virgin Islands. We have summer jam happening now, and the people come from Tortola in droves, and how are they going to bathe? When they go to a basketball game, it's not an air-conditioned facility, and then they might go to the club, and when they come back to the hotel, they can't get water to bathe, much less the residency and the island. So it is a very vexing issue, and the petition is necessary because we want the powers that be to realize that we are serious, we're paying taxes, and we should not be in the position that we're in 2023 without water, and at the end of the day, without answers. You're not getting any answers. You're only hearing about a press release. So the residents, a group of us, have come together, and we are taking matters to some degree into our own hands and letting them realize how serious these situations are. And water, as stated in the petition with the United Nations, is a human. It is a right. It is a right. It is not just some fly-by-night thing that you can get up and you don't need. You need water to live. You need water to survive. And since COVID and emphasis being on washing your hands, keeping places clean, or cleaner, why is this not being made a priority? They talk about the sargassum. That thing with the sargassum happened before. So why did we not plan for that before? It is so amazing sometimes. Again, you sit and stand in finance, and every year you have to beg. What is the issue with the sargassum? Why are we not budgeting for these things? And a budget is just that. The sargassum might come, the sargassum might not come, but we need to make sure we have a plan in place. And then it becomes a health issue. And so it cannot only be the Ministry of Natural Resources responsibility. The Ministry of Health now has to become involved and collaborate with the Natural Resources Ministry. But in my opinion, and from what we are seeing, the can is being kicked down the road, the buck is being passed, and, it's not my responsibility. I'm not responsible for sargassum, but then it is affecting the people. Why are they not working together to fix the issue? And people might say, you were there. I know I was there, and I know the difficulty of the lack of collaboration when these things happen, but somebody has to take responsibility, and those two ministries, health and natural resources, need to take responsibility for the sargassum, and the Ministry of Communication and Work needs to step up to the plate and deal with the water crisis that we are facing in the Virgin Islands.
Okay. To whom does the petition go?
the petition is going to go to the entire House of Assembly and wherever else it needs to go. Because we as residents in the British Virgin Islands can no longer sit back and do without water for extended periods of time. Some persons saying that it is more tourism focused. No, it's not. It is not tourism focused because we don't have any tourists now. And we still don't have no water, Cathy. You know, if you don't have water, you're in the dry weather season, so a lot of systems are dry. And I had that experience the other day. I had to go to St. Thomas. The ferry schedule is of such that you cannot get back to Virgin Gorda until literally 10 at night. And you come back and you turn on the pipe and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So the residents are very important. And yes, the tourists are important too, because if I were paying $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 a night for a hotel room or villa, I don't expect not to have water. And we keep hearing the excuse, what's wrong with that reservoir? That's something that needs to be investigated. The reservoir was damaged during the hurricane. It is still not repaired 100% at Minton Hill because there's a gaping hole on the top of it. I know years ago there was an issue where it was leaking and divers, they sent in a specialized diver to fix that leak. They keep telling us the reservoir levels are always low. Something is wrong because in February the reservoir level is low. In September, when you have no tourists, the reservoir level is still low. Is the plant having a problem? Is there a leak at the reservoir? Is the water leaking out somewhere along the way? Is water being stolen? We have to look at all of those possibilities. Are persons tapping into lines without a meter? Because Chris, you need to reach out to Chris Yates too.
She has commented.
Right, because she gave an extensive information that has been passed on to the rep and to other persons in authority. And we've asked these questions over and over and we are fed up. So the petition was literally almost a last resort, but we cannot wait for the tourism season to begin. And because that's all we have on Virgin Gorda, tourism and construction. And 90% of the construction is about tourism. So when a worker in a hotel on a construction site cannot bathe, it is a domino effect. It affects everything. You have a full hotel and 90% of your employees are going to say, listen, I cannot come to work. I cannot bathe.
Okay.
What do you do? It is a serious problem that they need to correct.
This has been The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards.